Good evening. As night falls in Europe, the Formula PlayStation League heads to the land of the rising sun and the 5.8-kilometre Suzuka circuit for round number 4 of a thus far gripping championship, which has seen the top two made up of drivers yet to win a race and plenty of shocks and surprises across the opening 3 rounds of exhilarating racing. Welcome to the Japanese Grand Prix. My name is Rob Kershaw. I'll be your host over the course of this evening's action. Thank you very much for joining us at the only figure-of-8 circuit on the Formula 1 calendar and one of 6 Asian races on the calendar, if of course you include Australia as one such race. Only a few miles north of Australia here today in Japan for the 4th round, which has seen 3 different winners precede it in the 3 races we've had in Monza, with Dacinio winning from 18th on the grid, with James winning in Singapore for round number 2 in the rain-affected race, and round 3 last time out with another winner from 18th on the grid in TDB in the Renault. It's been a fascinating start. Do let me know in the comments your thoughts on how the season's gone so far, with all the thrills and spills that we've been able to witness thus far in the championship. And of course, give me your predictions for this season, because I guarantee some of you, a lot of you, most of you will be wrong. I know I will be if I made one, which is what I'm not going to. I'm just gonna let you guys do that. But here in Japan, one of the most exciting circuits on the calendar, which is why it's such a shame that we don't get to see it on the F1 circus this year. Formula 1 will travel there next year, of course, for the 2021 Japanese Grand Prix. COVID permitting, who knows what's really going to happen. As we join Reese out on track, he'll be the first driver by the looks of it to set a lap time in qualifying. Remember, short qualifying followed by 50% Grand Prix. Not the usual 3 qualifying sessions that you would see ordinarily in a Formula 1 race. I guess it's closer to the we saw just recently at Imola, with just a very short practice session followed by qualifying in the Grand Prix, as opposed to 3 practice sessions. Reese, thus far this season, has out-qualified his teammate Cobalt twice and outraced him twice. In the opening 3 rounds, Cobalt is just behind him on track, so those two have been pretty competitive so far. They were very, very close, I can tell you, in the last Grand Prix. Japan, of course, a different circuit once again in terms of the nature of the track and naturally of the circuit, particularly that first sector where you can gain or lose so much time. Right, and towards the final corner then comes Reese to begin his first flying lap of the session. Opens the DRS and charges down towards turn 1 with the DRS rear wing wide open. Brings the car into turn 1. The DRS flap closes on the rear wing, clips the apex and uses the curb nicely on the exit of turn 2. Now towards turn 3, spins the car into the wall and is out of qualifying. And right there immediately is the inherent danger of the Suzuka circuit. It's caught Reese out already. He's absolutely smashed that Williams out of the session and will be taking no further part in qualifying for the Japanese Grand Prix. He'll be starting from the very back of the order for the race. And it's a challenging circuit. The first sector is always difficult, and Reese has given us a first-hand example of that. Going through turn 3, taking too much curb on the inside, and putting pay to his qualifying efforts. His teammate Cobalt still out there. He's on the medium, so the Williams were going for split strategies anyway, which is interesting to see. Of course, you usually see F1 teams putting their drivers on the same car strategies for qualifying, but often isn't the case for league racing, mainly because, of course, we're in equal cars. There's no realistic performance in this league, as in towards turns 15 and 16. The final chicane comes and up towards the line now. And what is the first? Is a 128.0 to open the account, but JT and the Mercedes deputising today in the absence of Buttons back with a 126.1 to go, even faster than that. Elian behind in the Ferrari, 128.1 on the soft compound of tyre, and P2 goes Vapor Trench in the McLaren with a 127.4, 1.3 seconds off JT's pace out front. That's pretty remarkable pace from the Mercedes stand-in. 129.2 from Lord Alarm. 5 and last of the current runners. Brown's had his lap invalidated, so he'll have to go around again. And Sam's Alfa Romeo just trundling around at the moment, so no lap time just yet from him either. Jack Prentice, there he is on a lap through the spoon curve of turns 12 and 13. An enthralling race last time out in Silverstone. Jack was Grand Prix, bought out the race, or bought out the safety car towards the end of the Grand Prix, which gave us all that drama in the last few laps. Across the line goes Jack, P5, 128.1, 2 seconds away from JT's pace out front. Vapor King in the Haas has just begun a lap as he comes into the 2 Degner corners and now goes underneath the bridge, which is at 130R. The unique nature, figure of 8 nature of this Suzuka circuit. It's beautiful to watch, beautiful to see, and I think for the drivers universally, it's kind of agreed that it's pretty beautiful to drive as well. As in towards Spoon Curve comes the Haas of King. Just being careful not to use too much exit curve through turn 12 as he has to bring the car around in turn 13. King with 1 points finish and 1 DNF so far in the opening 3 rounds of the season. So it's not been the impressive start we probably expected from him so far. Thought he was going to be a lot closer to the top, but just as I say that, 126.7 to go P2. So very close to the top on that occasion, just to shut me up. As Bazooka Joe brings his car through the first sector. Through turn 7 now, just has to lift off the throttle slightly to get the car through. And in towards the 2 Degner corners he comes. Oh, one's very wide into the gravel, and that will probably put Payne ready to that lap. He'll carry on, of course, for the time being. But that'll certainly not gain him any lap time, shall we say. Fashion has, well, I think he had to back out of 1 lap because he's done a 2 minute 2.2. So clearly they're having to back out of the previous lap and go again for this one. Fashion in the Renault. Also with 1 points finished from 3 races so far, but has generally pace-wise always looked pretty good. He and TDB are very close in terms of qualifying. Fashion's out-qualified TDB once in the first 3 races and out-raced him once as well. Those two, of course, came to blows in Silverstone, don't forget, pretty early on in the Grand Prix as Fashion goes P7, 128.1, and JT still out front then, 126.1 from him on an outlap as well in the Mercedes with just over 10 minutes to go of the session. James is out there in the Racing Point. Got the permanent Racing Point drive after his round 2 success in Singapore. A fantastic Grand Prix that was for him. A brilliant drive in the changeable conditions going from dry to wet to dry again. But this lap has been invalidated for the Racing Point driver, so he'll have to go around again. He's had pretty mixed fortunes though in the 2 races he's contested so far in the Formula PlayStation League. He's had that win, of course, which was also a podium. He then took pole position in Silverstone, but failed to finish the Grand Prix. 1 win, 1 podium, 1 pole, 1 points finish, 1 non-finish. It's been a pretty spread out season, and hopefully for him he'll really find his feet and perform consistently. Of course, we don't really know how consistent he is because he's only done 2 races, but he's certainly been at opposite ends of the spectrum in more ways than one, really. Pole position in 1 race, 3rd place in another, which aren't really opposite ends of the spectrum in fairness, but yeah, of course 1 victory and 1 non-finish. Decinio has had his lap invalidated in the 2nd Mercedes as He looks to wrestle the car through the second Degner. JT, his teammate, has just gone out on another lap to try and further extend his advantage out front. And he may be joining in the fourth round, but if JT can keep this pace up and convert, I'll take pole here, convert it to victory, and continue to perform consistently. If, of course, he's able to perform, to race for the rest of the races in the season. He is just a reserve driver, but if he is able to get himself a consistent drive, you never know if he might be in the running for the championship this season, and certainly next season as well, if he can earn himself a drive. He certainly looks quick enough. He's currently on pole by 0.6 of a second, or just under, is the Mercedes driver. Shows, of course, the team that just sealed a record 7th consecutive Constructors' title in Imola in the last race weekend. Lewis Hamilton having just taken his 93rd Grand Prix victory, and is now 2 ahead of the previous record set by Michael Schumacher. The record that many thought, myself included to be fair, was never going to be beaten in the rest of Formula One's decorated history. But there it is, has been beaten, has been toppled, and we wait to see how far Hamilton can extend that record, and of course in future generations who can go on to try and match it. Right, Trench, round 130R. Trench remarkably top of the Drivers' Championship, having not yet won a Grand Prix in the opening 3 rounds of the Formula PlayStation League Season 6, which is it's pretty incredible. 126.6 to just improve a little bit, get a bit closer to JT, but still, sadly for him, nowhere near pole position. There's Fabergé, P4 for him, 127.2 in the Racing Point car. And Sam out there as well in the Alfa Romeo, around the final corner for him. In fact, no, into the pits for him. He's backed out of that particular effort, and will obviously go for at least one more run between now and the end of the session, with just under 7 minutes to go. Here's Elian in the Ferrari, second in the championship in Division 2 last season, to earn him promotion to Division 1 with a win and 3 podiums on the way. Has I wouldn't say struggled, that would be harsh, but hasn't replicated that success in Division 1, which of course isn't necessarily to be expected. It is a jump up, that's why it's a different division, that's why it's a higher tier. It's not going to be quite the same. It's going to be harder than it was. So all things considered, he's dealt with it very, very well as Elian, and we'll just be hoping to score a few more points and get a bit closer to the podium positions. His usual teammate Nuth, who is second in the title, isn't with us this evening. He did say after the second race, excuse me, the third race. No, it was the second race. I'm getting my numbers mixed up. Yeah, it was the second race in Singapore. He said after that one that despite his podium finish, he wasn't actually expecting to compete for the championship. Yeah, sadly for him, I think missing out on this one as well may well prove that to be true, but who knows, because it has been an extraordinarily tight seat. Cheers, Nuth. He's going to be here in a few minutes, actually. So he is racing with us tonight. Perfect timing. Cheers, Leon. Yeah, just ignore everything I've just said. He's going to be with us in a few minutes. Across the line comes James to go P4, 127.2 for the Racing Point driver, moves just ahead of his teammate Shea. Shea, of course, he was with us in Silverstone, didn't race in Singapore because of a race ban after an incident that I think the less said about the better. With, I think it was Kasu, either Kasu or Trixie. It was one of the Red Bulls. I think it was Kasu. And currently 4th and 5th for the Racing Point drivers. And Nuth has just joined us. There we go. Here comes Cobalt then, the only Williams left in the session because Reese is out of qualifying. The very first lap of qualifying, he bended in the barrier at turn 3. And it's a shame because he's normally an extremely consistent qualifier. Is Reese. Always seems to qualify well, but sadly for him here today just hasn't quite worked out. But, of course, it does then beg the question, and it does open up the opportunity for a unique choice of tyre strategy for the start of the Grand Prix. Remember, the same sort of rules still apply in a short qualifying as it does in a full 3-session qualifying, whereby if you qualify outside the top 10, you do get a free choice of tyres for the Grand Prix. Anywhere inside the top 10, and you have to start the race on the tyres you qualify on. That's the only difference, really, is that obviously normally in Formula 1 you would use the tyres that you use in, or you would start on the tyres you use in Q2. Whereas here, of course, you just use the tyres you qualify on proper. Round the final corner comes to Senio. First lap from him is good enough for P6, 127.8 in the Mercedes. JT's just extended the gap out front, by the way, 125.9, a whole second quicker than P2 Vapor Trench. Excuse me, 7/10 quicker, I should say. A 6 and a 9. They look the same to me. What can I say? 7/10 quicker than Trench. Either way, it's still... you would probably suggest... I don't want to hang my hat on this one. Probably an insurmountable margin. But who knows? Crazy things have happened in the first 3 rounds. So I really shouldn't make predictions like that. Right, TDB. Winner of the last race in Silverstone. Desinio winner from P18 in Monza. Kasu finished second from P18 in Singapore, and TDB winning the British Grand Prix last time out from 18th on the grid. It's been a season so far of qualifying P18, and at the minute, Reese is set to hold that spot for the start of the Grand Prix. Oh, TDB's gone over the Astro at the final chicane and ruined his lap right at the very end. He'll be livid with that. He'll be so frustrated about that one. He has got, of course, he's got time for another go, but he'll be very frustrated indeed. Sam in the Alfa Romeo, P11 at the moment. He is currently behind his teammate Bazooka Joe, who is aiming to outqualify his teammate Sam for the 3rd time this season. Excuse me, for the 2nd time this season, I should say, as I just look at my notes. 2nd time this season. Sam's outqualified Bazooka Joe twice, but Bazooka Joe has outqualified Sam twice. That's the number I was looking at. He's looking at race for the 3rd time in the Grand Prix. Haven't really saved that one, unfortunately. I didn't really rescue that one. But yeah, looking to outqualify Sam for the 2nd time. Sam looking to extend an advantage to 3-1 as he goes very wide out of turn 2 and invalidates that lap time. So if Sam is going to improve, it's going to have to be on another run, although I don't actually know if he's got time to do that. He might not. That'll be pretty tight, actually. Squeaky bum time for him. JT's in the pits. He's not going to be going again. Doesn't really need to, I wouldn't say, although, as I say, I shouldn't say things like that. You never know. As he aims to just waltz into the league and take pole position straight away. Right, here's Vapor Nuth in the Ferrari. Oh, and that's not good. That's not good at all. He's got the Alpha Tauri in front of him, getting in the way and halting his lap. But I believe that Brown in... Is that Brown? Oh, the Alpha Tauri driver, which is Brown. I think was... excuse me, it was Jack Prentice. Jack Prentice was going around the Alpha Tauri. I believe, yeah, so he was about to start a lap, I believe. Yeah, and Vapor Nuth was on one. So, yeah, I'd rather feel as though Nuth will have something to say about that. JT was on an outlap, but he's crossed the line. Checkered flag has fallen on the session. So he won't be setting another lap between now and the end. Right, here's Vapor Trench. This is going to be pole. It has to be a hell of an effort from him. Sam's out of the session, P11 for him as it stands. Jack Prentice is on a lap in the Alpha Tauri, looking to improve on P12. Elian and Fashion have both retired from the session. TDB is still going, looking to improve. Looking to set a lap time in the first place, actually, I should say. Round the 2 Degners goes Vapor Trench. Here comes TDB then. One of the only drivers you would suggest who has any chance of stopping JT whatsoever. Lorna Lamb, P7 in the McLaren ahead of Trixky in 8th place. Desinio, P9. So he's out qualified by JT. What a start this is set to be for JT, the reserve driver, stepping into the Mercedes. Here comes TDB across the line in the Renault, and it's P4, 126.9, 126.7 from Shea to top that, and send TDB back down to P5. Shea out-qualifies his teammate James for the very first time this season, actually. So a really good effort in qualifying from him, as Vapor Nuth in the Ferrari goes P2 with a 126.4. Here comes Vapor Trench in the McLaren, and it's P3. And Vapor Nuth, with a fantastic last-ditch effort, manages to steal second place away from Trench. But it's JT's Mercedes, the reserve driver, who has waltzed in and put the car on pole for the Japanese Grand Prix. What an effort then from JT. 15 wins from pole here in Japan over the years. He takes pole from Nuth. Trench in P3. Vapor King qualifies 4th. Shea in 5th. TDB in P6. Cobalt 7th. James in 8th. Lorna Lamb in P9. Trixky rounds up the top 10. Jack Prentice 11th in the AlphaTauri. Bazooka Joe in P12. Decinio 13th. Brown in 14th. Sam 15th. Elian takes P16 for Ferrari. Pretty disappointing day for him in the end, in qualifying at least. Fashion P17 for Renault, and Reese, who crashed out at the very start of qualifying, will be down in P18. So we'll look to see what progress he can make from the back, because he's always a consistent driver in qualifying and the race. I maintain he does always seem to have some degree of misfortune during the Grand Prix, even when he does qualify well. Hopefully that won't befall him today, because it would be nice to see him come through the order, and especially given the fact that we have rain in Japan. This is brilliant. This is going to be a fantastic race now in the wet. Japan always throws up some fantastic Grand Prix in the dry, let alone the wet, and these wet conditions are surely going to add to what will hopefully be a stunning round number 4. We had rain in Singapore, and it ultimately led to a fantastic final that really gave us the drama we were anticipating over the course of much of the Grand Prix. But well, this should be a good one in the rain. Doesn't look wet enough for the full wet tyres, but certainly it's the right conditions for the intermediates here. Well, strap in, because this is going to be a good one. With the wet conditions playing a part, first race of seasons of driver. We're about to find out who can go and take victory in round number 4. Oh, and JT spins on the formation lap, so they're in danger straight away of the Japanese Grand Prix circuit in the wet. JT, the pole sitter, has spun the car on the formation lap, so he goes back to the grid, and Nuth then will lead the drivers round, although of course he's not P1, he will still line up in P2. And this is still a really good effort from Nuth in qualifying. Joined right at the end and set a brilliant lap to go second at the in the dying moments of the session, and this really could be the start of a championship assault, I guess, from Nuth. P2 in the championship. The top 2, as I mentioned earlier, both yet to win a race. 4 of the top 5 drivers in the championship haven't won a race yet, and it's a 14-point gap between Trench and Vapor Nuth, then just 1 point back to Decinio. He's level on points with 2 other drivers. They are Bazooka Joe and TDB, and then James, who's only been with us for 2 races, is only a point behind them. And then 3 points behind him is Reese in the Williams, who of course starts from the back today. So it's pretty crazy. 19 points covering the top 7 in the championship. And it is all about possibly to be cracked open in round number 4. A 130.9 is the track record set by Lewis Hamilton last year. I don't think that's going to happen today unless we transition onto dry conditions towards the end of this race. Ferrari there with Nuth, just one of the one of only 7 constructors to win this Grand Prix. They join McLaren, Benetton, Williams, Renault, Red Bull, and of course most recently Mercedes to achieve that feat. But here today, which constructor is it going to be? Which driver is it going to be? JT on pole. Nuth, his first win of the championship season. Vapor Trench, who will win here in Japan? The Japanese Grand Prix, round number 4, is underway. It's a fantastic start from second. A really poor start from JT as Nuth takes P1. Trench looks to get ahead of him. King is right behind as well. King and Trench side by side, and King spins in the Haas. It's an awful start for King. He's made another error. He's smashed through one of the polystyrene boards. He's broken his front wing after a fantastic getaway off the line. He's spun round and is down to P17. What a start from Vapor Nuth. Up to P1, Trench up to second, and JT, who started on pole, got a dreadful start off the line and is down to 7th, just in front of Lorna Lamb in the McLaren. It's the best possible start for Vapor Nuth into P1 straight away on lap number 1, and the championship are the top 2 on the opening lap of the Japanese Grand Prix, and Jack Prentice in the AlphaTauri has just fallen down the order, and that's because he's come a cropper as well. He's spun out of the race, and Trixky is out of the Grand Prix in the Red Bull, and a safety car is deployed as a result. What a crash! I told you didn't want to miss it. And already we have a Red Bull retiring for the race. There he is, and the barrier's actually just behind. And, well, what a start. What a brilliant start for Nuth. So too for Trench. It was a fantastic start for Vapor King, but he, I think, got caught on the inside of turn 1 on the curb and spun round. He's now down in P15, has a lot of work to do to make up those positions, but thankfully for him, he's got a safety car to partially spare his blushes. Reese is up to P13 from 18th place on the grid. So a really good start from Elian up to P12 as well. In a Ferrari Fashion's got up to P11 from P17. Sam's up in the points in the Alfa Romeo. A decent start from him as well. And there is Vapor Nuth. The timing screens once again are going here, there and everywhere. And Vapor King has come into the pits because he has front wing damage on his Haas. So in he comes. Well, it's a pattern that sort of started towards the back end of last season, actually, for King. In Brazil, I remember. Pretty clearly, he made that mistake under the safety car restart. And since that moment, really, when he spun out just before the safety car restart, he's not really recovered since. He's not really been near the top. And that was his chance here today. And it may still be a chance because there's still a lot of laps left and a lot of drama to be had in this Japanese Grand Prix. Do not count anybody out just yet. I certainly won't be hanging my hat on any predictions just yet in this Grand Prix. What you can predict every time is that the timing screens at some point, namely right at the start, are going to go. I can assure you that Jack Prentice is not P1, and Nuth is definitely in first place. I'm sure they'll, well, they always do. It'll fix itself eventually. But, yeah. Never nice. Never nice to do that to me. Go, fix itself now. So the first safety car on the first lap. I do wonder how many more safety cars are we going to have between now and the end of the race. Because if the rain keeps up, then I don't think I'd begrudge there being a few more after this one over the course of this Grand Prix. And the omens aren't too bad for Nuth, who has taken the lead, I should say. Started from second place, has been 11 victories from second at the Japanese Grand Prix over the years. 31 races contested here in Suzuka. It's a pretty historic track racing-wise. If you're wondering why there's only been 31, well, it's because it used to with Fuji. So the Japanese Grand Prix was held between Fuji and Japan. Or didn't really alternate, actually. Fuji held it for a few years. And Suzuka has taken the rights to this Grand Prix, I guess you could say, for, well, for the last many years. Apart from 2008, when Fuji took over the running just for 1 year. I'll give someone a cookie if they can tell me who won that race in 2008 in Fuji. I mean, obviously you can just look it up, and you know, still that's worth a cookie or a Freddo. Other treats are available, and so far it looks as though we might be set for a treat of a Japanese Grand Prix as well, because what a frantic start we've had. And I can certainly imagine that getting and more dramatic the evening goes on here. It's been held every year at Suzuka bar 2008 since 1986 in 87. Of course, the last race won by Valtteri Bottas last year for Mercedes. The scene of the infamous James it's Valtteri line after the Grand Prix. There's also the line after Australia that year, which he also used after Russia, but I can't really repeat that live on air. I could do, but I'm just going to choose not to. Right. Safety car in at the end of this lap, so that means I can stop rambling and get back to the action. So no overtaking until the start-finish line. It is no longer the safety car line, as it used to be between 2010 and last year. Or the end of 2018, specifically. So Nuth has a few options as to when he chooses to go. And he's chosen right on the exit of turn 16, going into the final corner of 17. So there goes Nuth. The Ferrari's off, and he's not off. He's off on he's off on the restart. And Trench behind him. There's TDB up in third place for Renault. A positive start for him. Goes wide at turn 1 and leaves himself a little bit vulnerable to Vapor Shea. Oh, and Vapor Nuth made a mistake, and Trench has the lead. Trench takes the lead from the Ferrari. Vapor Nuth with the mistake. Trench profits from it, capitalises fully on the Ferrari's lack of judgment seemingly through the first sector, and Trench has the lead from Nuth. An extremely uncharacteristic error from the Ferrari driver, and he concedes the position to the McLaren, and a change of lead in well, twice in as many racing laps in the Grand Prix, if you exclude the couple of racing laps that we've had, safety car laps that we've had. Vapor Shea right behind TDB, James in P6, he's behind Cobalt in the Williams. Made a really good start from 18th. Is there going to be another podium finish from P18? There's been a podium finish from 18th place in each of the first 3 Grand Prix so far. Will we see another today? Well, with rain in the air, although the rain has kind of gone. You never know. Right, Reese in the winning. Oh, does so well to hold on to the back end there. He's right behind Elian, and I think Elian must have moved across because the car deployed again. Loses the back end on the exit of 130R and smashes into the barrier. And that is 2 retirements already. In this Grand Prix, another safety car. The driver's coming in for a pit stop, and you do wonder. Slick tyres going on. So Vapor Nuth's coming to the pits, and he's onto a set of the mediums. And away he goes. So, is it too early, I wonder, because Vapor Trench has stayed out. TDB has also left his Renault on the track. The only Renault now in the race. James up the P3 to Senio in 4th now for Mercedes. So all 4 of those guys clearly feeling that it's not really dry enough yet to change onto the slicks, but you kind of know on the F1 games that it does change pretty quickly, so you never know, by the end of this lap they might just change their minds. But by that point, of course, Vapor Nuth will have already caught up to them on his medium tyres. Shea, Cobalt, JT's on the hard, so I think he's probably going to try to go to the end on his tyres. Lord of Lamb, Brown. Basically everybody below 4th place is on the medium tyres, apart from Fashion and Trixie, because they are in the barriers and will be taking no further part in the Japanese Grand Prix. Sadly for them, it's a shame, because Fashion's really shown some really bright glimpses early doors in the FPSL in Season 6, but won't be able to give us any of that shine in round number 4. There is Reese, one of only 2 drivers then, along with JT, to switch on to the hard compound tyre in a bid to go to the end of the Grand Prix, which is clearly a suggestion. Well, one of 2 things really: that they don't feel as though there's going to be any more rain, or they think that there is going to be more rain and they just want to go into the hards to make sure that they've got the longevity so that they don't have to stop again between now and the potential next rain period, if that makes sense. But chances are it will brighten up now and it will be dry to the end. But we'll see. Right, so, yeah, the top 4 were wrong, basically. They've come into the pits, so that sucks for them, because that's going to lose them so much track position now. One thing I'm wondering, actually, and this is some sort of revelation to me, and it probably isn't a revelation to any of you, is that I think they were probably past the pits, weren't they, when the safety car was deployed. Having said that, though, Vapor Nuth was able to come into the pits, and he was second. So oh, and look at that, TDB racing with Trench out of the pits, and he's got a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. But that is fantastic opportunistic racing, because the pit lane and the pit exit don't officially count as part of the racetrack under the safety car. So he's passed him in the pit exit, and that counts. He's up to P13. However, he has just picked up a penalty in the process by running wide out of turn 1, and by doing that. So, but still, that was brilliant. That was fantastic to watch. Really well done to TDB there. He's a brainy one, that one. So second safety car of the race already. Only 6 laps in to the Grand Prix. As Nuth exits turn 10. And he had the lead. He lost it again to TDB, to Trench, I should say. But the safety car and the changing conditions have played havoc with the drivers and the strategies. And Nuth once again has the lead on lap number 6 of round number 4 at the Japanese Grand Prix. Once again, the safety car in this lap, and we'll see if Nuth can keep his car on the road and make the first lap after the safety car in the lead, and then we'll see if he can build that advantage as well when he chooses the same spot to go for it. Yeah, pretty much. So out of turn 16, he goes for it, and he's gone away in that Ferrari, and he's pretty much left Shea behind, hasn't he, down the home straight. There's the racing point. Cobalt up to P3 in the Williams now. Because of all these tyre changes and the changing conditions that have played havoc with the opening part of this Grand Prix. Lord Alarm has just got ahead of JT. So P4 for Lord Alarm, P5 for JT, although I feel as though JT was probably actually racing him from behind. But yeah, Lord Alarm in P4. JT, having just got onto that fresh set of hard tyres, it's all over the back of him in 5th place. So 4th and 5th for those two. Brown to P6 in the Alpha Tauri. Reese has climbed up into the points now in the Williams, up to P9 for him. And something's happened, I think, to Vapor Trench. Yes, it has. The McLaren has ended up in the barrier. So on the hard tyres, the man who had led the Grand Prix just a couple of laps ago is in the wall. And I believe he's probably lost his front wing as a result. Has he got any damage? No, he hasn't. I think he's just about got away with damage. So he's spun the car, and he's down to P16. Here's James, another one who suffered as a result of the strategy going onto the slick tyres. In front of him, Decenio is on the softs, which is very intriguing. Yeah, I'm not really sure what he aims to gain out of that, because there's only so far he can go on those tyres, and of course he'll start to struggle. And he'll have to basically just make an extra pit stop compared to everybody else. Right, Vapor King has been saved by that safety car, because he's now P6. He's just got ahead of Brown to take that position away from the AlphaTauri. We've now got Elian in the Ferrari right behind the AlphaTauri. Isn't quite going to be close enough on the run down towards turn 1. But Elian now inside the points as Jack Prentice goes down the inside of Bazooka Joe and climbs up into the top 10. In the car, pushes the Alfa Romeo down to P11, just in front of his teammate Sam. Looking to outrace his teammate Bazooka Joe for the first time in Season 6 in the Formula PlayStation League. TDB down in P13 after he was also caught out by that safety car in the pit stops. So it'll be intriguing again to see how much progress those guys can make from the back. Vapor Trench, of course, is now just under 12 seconds behind James because of that unfortunate spin. Oh, down the inside goes TDB. It's a dangerous move on Sam. They make contact. He just about gets away with it now. Look at Decenio all over the back of the Renault on the run through turn 11 down towards Spoon. Is there going to be room for 2 into there? There is, because down the inside he goes. Very nearly hits Sam, but fantastically makes the move stick. Does the Mercedes driver, the winner of round number 1, executes the perfect overtake on TDB into Spoon Curve. Just about manages to avoid contact with the Alfa Romeo in front in the process. Brilliant pass from the Mercedes, and now he has both the Alfa Romeos in front of him. First up is Sam, and then Bazooka Joe after him. DRS has been enabled. Cena doesn't quite have it just yet because it's enabled on the lap, but they're just starting now. Down towards turn 1 they go. Sam has a little look at Bazooka Joe, but isn't quite close enough at the moment. There is JT following Lord Alam very closely. Look at Vapor King as well, right behind the Mercedes, looking to take advantage of the racing going on ahead of him. As through turn 7 they go. JT runs ever so slightly wide, doesn't really cost him any time. As down towards the 2 decks they go. Loose lead is now 2.5 seconds from the racing point of Vapor Shea. Then Lord Alam a further 2 seconds back from Cobalt, who is just over a second away from Vapor Shea. JT, look at the overspeed he's got through turn 10 as he closes up to Alam through turn 11 down towards Spoon Curve. Isn't quite close enough just yet. Decenio's just gotten ahead of Sam, so he's now sandwiched in between the 2 Alfa Romeos. He's passed 1. Oh, but Sam tries to come back at him, and James is out of the Grand Prix by the looks of it in the racing point, and virtual safety cars deployed this time, not a full safety car. What's happened to James, I wonder? He's come a cropper somewhere. I didn't see what's happened to TRT James, but oh, there we go. So, saying earlier, this season's been full of shocks and surprises in the early going, and that rings true again here, because one of the front runners, or the expected front runners in the Grand Prix, has come a cropper and is out of the Grand Prix. Right here is JT in the Mercedes as he closes up to the McLaren of Lamb and tries to go round the outside. Lamb goes very wide through turn 1. They're still side by side on the exit of turn 2. This is going to be very tight indeed. JT has to give it up. Lord Lamb stays ahead for the time being. But this is great racing between these two as Decenio gets ahead of Bazooka Joe, and Sam spins round in the Alfa Romeo. Sam, who was already out of the points, is now further down the order. And he's put himself down to P14. He'll still be ahead of Trench, I believe. No, he won't. Trench's got past him. So another spin, another error of judgment in this Japanese Grand Prix. As we resume with this battle between Alam, JT and Vapor King. JT looking to make his way back up towards the podium places after the start of the race. And the few laps that... well, they've not gone tremendously badly for him, but he's... he goes wide into the gravel, does he? Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Vapor King, bit of lag going on, but Vapor King is nearly side by side with him. JT managed to cut him off on the run towards 130R, and they're still going to be very close. They're going to be side by side. King tries to go around the outside of the chicane at turn 15 and 16. He can't do this, can he? No, he can't. JT manages to stay in front for now, but this is so tight. The holding up going on from Alam to JT is really putting King in this battle. Down towards turn 1 to go, but it's a bit of a DRS trade at the moment, and he's not quite able to capitalise. There is Elliot just in front of Jack Prentice, and Vapor King is in front of JT. So yeah, he's got it. So JT, I think, has made a mistake somewhere, because that happened through turn 2, and Vapor King is ahead of the Mercedes. So JT, who has been growing quite frustrated, I imagine, behind the McLaren, has now fallen behind the Haas and is down to P6 as Northern Lamb picks up a penalty as well. So that'll put Vapor King ahead of him on the timing screens. He'll look to get ahead of him on track, though, otherwise he'll probably succumb to the same pressure that allowed King to get ahead of him in the first place. Into the pits has come Sam in the Alfa Romeo, and he's out of the Grand Prix, so he's retired that car. That's a shame, actually. It's a shame to see him not persist and try to go for a few more points, because you just never know what could have happened between now and in the Grand Prix. There's still 17 laps left to go, so yeah, that's a shame. He didn't want to carry on to the end to see if he could have scored any points. Here comes Vapor King then, and will he be able to get the job done that JT was not quite able to achieve and get past the Lamb? Well, he looks so quick, doesn't he, through that final chicane as he opens up the DRS rear wing, and surely now he's got the chance on the car, and he closes up down towards turn 1. He's got the overspeed. Is he close enough? No, he's not. Alam seemingly has quite a lot of straight line speed in that McLaren, because he's doing a brilliant job of staying ahead. And Elian and Jack Prentice and Brown all getting very close together. Jack Prentice getting ahead of Elian and Brown at the same time by the looks of it, and up to P7 he goes. That's fantastic opportunistic racing by the looks of it from Jack Prentice, getting ahead of his teammate and Elian, and up now to 7th place in the Japanese Grand Prix. That's a fantastic double move. I didn't quite see it, sadly. Reese as well in the Williams just behind them, so he's now P10 in the Williams. Can't remember how much longer, because he's right behind Brown. I think he had a look, didn't he, into turn 10, but thought better of it. Gets a very good exit though out of the hairpin, and now he's closing up to the AlphaTauri through turn 11. Elian getting very close to Jack Prentice, also trying to go round the outside of Spoon. That's a brave move. Can he pull it off? No. And Brown as well manages to stay ahead of Reese for the time being, but if Elian can get a good exit here out of Spoon curve, he might have a chance. Jack Prentice has certainly been closed up on by the Ferrari of Elian up towards 130R, but not quite close enough for the move on the AlphaTauri just yet, as Reese once again has to be patient and wait for his move on Brown. The issue for him is that Brown's going to have DRS as well on Elian in front, as Elian closes up towards Jack Prentice on the run down towards the 1. Isn't going to be quite close enough for the move at the moment. And yeah, Vapor King hasn't been able to get past the Lamb, and he's now fallen back into the clutches of the guy he passed because of his inability to get ahead of the McLaren. So, Lord Lamb is proving very tough to get past. And do you know what? For a minute there, I thought King was going to be round again, but he managed to hold on to the car and keep pointing in the right direction for the time being. But Alam is proving a bit of an obstacle at the moment, isn't he, for the two drivers behind him. In towards the hairpin they go. Of course, whilst looking at the car in front, King's going to be going into that hairpin knowing that there's going to be that perennial threat from behind from JT, who may well decide to send one down the inside potentially. In towards Spoon they go once again. A little bit wide goes Vapor King. Is that going to leave him vulnerable to JT on the exit? It might do. I don't think it will. I think he's just about got away with it for now. But here comes the Mercedes getting closer and closer to the Haas. He's not going to be able to get side by side to do 130. Has to just back off the throttle slightly, although here he comes into the chicane. And does he try to get side by side with him? Not quite yet. Oh, Lord Lamb slightly wide. And is that going to be a chance now for the Haas to get in front? Oh, is there going to be a chance for the Mercedes of JT? I'd probably suggest that JT's closer to King than King is to Lord Lamb. And here comes the Mercedes in towards turn 1. No, not quite close enough to the Haas car. It's as you were once again going through turn 1. Reese then. Still chasing Brown, who's still behind Elian. Elian is still within DRS range of Jack Prentice, but falling. Yeah, there we go. He's just fallen out of it, so he's falling a little bit further behind. And Elian now coming under immense pressure from Brown and Reese. Desinio in the Mercedes catching up as well to these guys. TDB in P12 for Renault, then Bazooka Joe, and then Vapor Trench, who is just slowly making his way back up to the back of the pack, having spun off that second safety car restart. Trench, who just a little earlier on was leading this Grand Prix after Noose's mistake off the first safety car restart. Noose lead, by the way, 4 seconds from Vapor Shares, you can see on the left-hand side of your screen. On the tower, JT very close again to Vapor King through Spoon Curve. And I think at this rate, it's just about waiting for that mistake, really, isn't it? From one driver to another. Although, here comes JT. Can he get side by side with King here through 130R? No, he'll get right underneath his gearbox though. And in towards the chicane. King will just hold the line and stay ahead for the time being. But you can see how much quicker JT is, and King's had a bit of a compromised exit out of the chicane. And this is going to be a chance now, surely, for JT, as he pulls out of the slipstream and goes to the outside. And can he make the move stick going into turn 1? Oh, they're still side by side. They're still very close. But it's a fantastic move from JT to get back ahead of the Haas. As Brown as well gets ahead of the Ferrari of Elian. What a fantastic move that was, though, from JT to put his Mercedes back in front of the Haas of King. And he's now the one back on the tail of the McLaren of Alam, who is watching this battle in his wing mirrors and thinking, please take each other out, because King and JT are just battling each other over who gets to battle Alam at the moment. As JT once again has a look at turn 10, not quite able to get ahead of him just yet, as Desinio climbs up into the points, and down the inside goes TDB in the Renault, and oh, they're going to be side by side on the exit. It's going to be a drag race through turn 11 now on the run down towards turn 12. TDB will have the inside line going into Spoon Curve. Oh, gets sent onto the grass, and he takes out Reese. The Renault and the Williams making contact. Reese into the wall, and he's lost his front wing. TDB was put onto the grass. He rejoined, having lost the back end. And the Williams has come a cropper, as it was only slows down very sportingly to let Reese go back ahead of him. I don't think that's going to be of any comfort really to Reese. Vapor Trench will be laughing in his cockpit at that one, because he's managed to get ahead of the pair of them as a result of that. And JT is ahead of Lord Alam. Finally, that move is done, and the Mercedes up to P4. And he's well, he's only really not really lost that much time, has he? Because he's only 4.5 seconds, just under, behind Cobalt, who occupies that final podium spot. Desinio into the pits. He's gone to set a medium tire to take him to the end of the Grand Prix. Noose picked up a penalty for track limits, and Reese is into the pits for Williams to change his front wing. He'll be livid. But, well, that question's going to be there, really. Did he force TDB out wide? Was that just a silly error from TDB in the Renault? Let me know. Whose fault did you think that was? We didn't get the best angle of it. But, yeah, contentious incident. And it's once again, and I'll repeat it again because it just keeps happening, that Reese just always seems to have this one bit of bad luck before him in the race, just when he's starting to run well. And it's, oh, and here comes TDB, another dive down the inside. This time it's on Elian, and that's for P11, and he has the move done, and this time it's done without any blemishes. For now, hopefully. Trench is now up into the points because of Desinio's pit stop. And Vapor King is now ahead of Alam through 130R down the inside through the very fast left-hander. And the Haas is ahead of the McLaren, and Alam's very brave defence of P4 has come to an end, and he's now down to P6 as well behind King as JT sets the fastest lap as we head into the 129s in this Japanese Grand Prix. 5 wins from outside the front row here, which we're not set to get at the moment, with Nooth being in P1. 3 very famous incidents of such. Well, I guess you can probably guess 2 of them. One of them was 1989 between Alain Prost and Ayrton Senna, the last year they spent together at McLaren. They crashed at the... Cobalt he's left the session. So Koval's car, the Williams car, which is currently P3, is a ghost car now. Oh, he's going to be caught then, isn't he, by JT? That is rotten luck for Koval with his internet. They collided at the final chicane, and that allowed Alessandro Nannini to win the Grand Prix. And then, of course, the most famous incident between those two, 1990, when Alain Prost took pole, but his pole position slot was put to the dirty side of the grid. And as a result of that, he took out his championship rival, Alain Prost, into turn 1 to win the championship. And, there's JT getting ahead of Koval, who is a ghost car at the minute because he's disconnected as Vapor pits for Racing Point. That's such bad luck for Koval, who's disconnected and lost a podium position as a result. Well, not just now, because he's just seen Shea come into the pits. Nelson Piquet would go on and win the Grand Prix that day. And then, of course, who can forget 2005, Kimi Raikkonen 17th on the grid, not too dissimilar to some of the winners we've had so far in Season 6. And he passed Giancarlo Fisichella on the very last lap of the Grand Prix to win that day. Elian then up into the points for now, but of course he hasn't made another pit stop yet, and I imagine he will have to stop again on the medium tyres to get to the end. Right, so JT started on pole, is now up to second, having made the start didn't go his way really, didn't get off the line properly, and he's now 11.5 seconds behind Nuth. Bear in mind, Nuth does have a penalty as well. So who is going to win this Grand Prix? Can Nuth hold the lead, or can JT close the gap? Bear in mind as well that we're expecting JT to go to the end of the race on this set of highs. However, he's been battling pretty hard on this set, so we'll see if he can really make them go to the end of the race, or whether he'll have to stop again. But we're pretty sure that Nuth out front will have to stop again, that's for sure. Here comes the Lamb down the inside on Elian into turn 12 at Spoon. That gets very close. Elian gets forced off the track, and Alam makes his way through. Two of the promoted drivers from Division 2 in Season 5. No love lost between those two. And Alam climbs back up into the points positions. And here comes Vapor as well. Down the inside through 130R. Elian might not have... Well, he might have decided not to fight that as hard as he did. But no harm done. Koval, I think, is reconnected. And he's into the pits now for Williams. And away he goes. P8 now for the driver who disconnected and was on for a podium as well. Really, really bad luck for him. And down to P11 now in the Williams. And in fact, has he reconnected? No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. So he's still disconnected, and Desinio, as a result, in the Mercedes gets ahead. That's a nightmare for Koval, and that's really unlucky, because he was potentially on for a podium finish here today in Japan. Right, TDB had an incident with Reese earlier on, and that clash will undoubtedly be referred to the stewards after the Grand Prix to see if there's going to be any punishable action in there. We'd imagine there will be. I'm just not sure who it would be for, to be honest. Yeah, it would be an interesting debate. Once again, let me know who you thought was the culprit, if anybody, in that incident. Of course, sometimes it can be a racing incident. There is such a thing, actually, surprisingly. Vapor in the Racing Point in P9, chasing after Lord Alam. Both these two on fresh tyres. Lord Alam's gone for the softs, which, yeah, you'd think can make it to the end, but Vapor going for the safer option on the medium tyres, as he looks to negotiate his way past the McLaren. Shea was in front, of course, before the pit stop, so yeah, Lord Alam getting in front and proving a bit of an obstacle course at the moment. Right, Jack Prentice is in the pits for AlphaTauri. These two will easily clear him. And Shea will not be clearing Alam just yet. He's not quite close enough on the run in towards turn 1. There's Jack Prentice coming out of the pits now. Where's he going to rejoin? It's going to be behind Desinio and in P10. And, well, look at that. He's got that whole bit of track to himself. So in the points still is Jack Prentice, but in the outer extremities of them in 10th place. Elian's in the pits as well for Ferrari, as Bazooka Joe picks up a track limits penalty. And he's going to be behind Reese, is Elian. So Reese is no longer making up the back of the pack. He's on the medium, so he's going to the end. But Elian's on fresh soft, so you would imagine Elian will be able to catch the Williams between now and the end. And pick up another position there, which won't be for points as it is, but as I say, you just never know what's going to happen between now and the end of proceedings here in round 4 of Season 6 in the Formula PlayStation League. Right, here comes TDB, having a look at Vapor Trench. TDB, another one on the hards, who were expected to go to the end. Trench, I don't think so. I don't think... excuse me, no, the other way around. Trench is going to the end on the hards. TDB, I'm not too sure if he'll be able to manage it on the mediums. Right, Nuth has come into the pits for Ferrari. Right then, so soft tyres between now and the end of the Grand Prix. I think, that JT is going to be going to the end on his set of hards that he went on to 15 laps ago. Bear in mind as well that Nuth has a penalty. So he's got to get ahead. He's got to make up 9 seconds now to JT and pull a 3-second gap after that. Oh, that's a big ask, isn't it? That's a huge ask from here. Unless, of course, JT feels the need to pit. As in comes Brown then. So in the AlphaTauri into P10. That promotes his teammate 1 position ahead of him as Decinio gets very close indeed with Jack Prentice. Jack on new tyres, looking to get ahead of the Mercedes and manages to just about hold on to the back end there through turn 3. As Elliott does indeed get ahead of Reese. So on the fresh tyres, Reese is now put back down to last of the current runners. As we rejoin Decinio and Jack Prentice in the battle between those two. Vapor King's just got onto fresh tyres as well, and he's right behind the racing point of Shea. So it's a 3-way battle now between Alam, Shea and King. And TDB still going, as is Vapor Trench. So those two still not pitting. Of course, Trench doesn't have to. He's on the hards, but TDB, well, to be fair, with 6 laps to go, I don't think he needs to, actually. He might get away with that. 8 seconds, the gap, just under, between JT and Nuth. That's going to be a very interesting run between now and the end of the Grand Prix. Can Nuth make up the time? Well, he's already made up, what, just over a second. 1.5 seconds in the space of a lap has the Ferrari, and that was on cold tyres. As here comes Vapor King, looking to pass Vapor Shea on the run down towards turn 1. He's got the outside line. Doesn't matter because he gets ahead before they get in towards the braking zone. And TDB has now pitted for Renault. So he's decided that he couldn't go to the end on those tyres. And that's going to put him outside the points now as well. So down to P11. He should, I think, stay ahead of Cobalt. But now, no, he won't. Cobalt. But he's still disconnected. So he's still a ghost car. So he should be able to get himself back ahead of him. So P12 for now. But we'll see what progress he can make in the final few laps here in Japan. Imagine what a safety car would do right now. Right, here comes King in towards turn 10. Oh, that's so lucky. Got onto the grass with Vapor Shea still lurking behind them, aiming to get that position back. And TDB has gone quite literally through Cobalt to reclaim that position and get himself closer to the points. As here comes Vapor King, so close to Lord Alam through 130R, pulls to the outside in towards the chicane. That's going to be very close. There's nearly contact. Alam holds the inside. King's having none of it. Holds the inside now for turn 16. Now he's around the outside at turn 17, and he's ahead of him as they go through the final corner. However, Lord Alam has DRS, as does Vapor Shea, and the McLaren here is going to try and come straight back at the Haas, but he's not going to be able to, is he? Oh, he tries to, then goes wide, then Vapor Shea goes down the inside and gets the position off the McLaren, and once again, Lord Alam loses not 1, but 2 positions in one go, and he's down to P6, and 5.5 seconds now in front of Jack Prentice. Right, just over 6 seconds between JT and Vapor Nuth. And of course, the longer this goes on, the more you'd rather feel as though it's not going to be doable for Nuth, as Reese gets back ahead of Elian. So putting up a fight for P12 is Reese in the Williams. It doesn't look as though it's going to be a battle for any points, sadly, between these two, but it's going to be a battle nonetheless. Decinio behind Jack Prentice. So Jack has got the move done on the Mercedes, so Decinio now down to P8, Jack up to P7, Brown still P9 in the other AlphaTauri car. As Shea looks to bridge the gap between himself and Vapor King, but of course King's on the soft, so I would imagine that gap is only going to get bigger between now and the end in the final few laps of the Japanese Grand Prix. There is Vapor Nuth, less than 6 seconds now separating him and JT, with 4 laps to go of the Japanese Grand Prix. Remember though, Nuth has a penalty as well. So yeah, the strategy of the hard tyres has, I think it's come up trumps for JT in the end. It's worked a treat. So the awful start's been mitigated by an excellent strategy call. A brilliant a brilliant move to go onto the hard tyres and go to the end of the Grand Prix as he just locks up on the left. And yeah, a genius move in the end, because Nuth's pit stop, Nuth's strategy meant that he had to make another stop between then and the end of the Grand Prix, whereas of course JT has no need to do that. He's going to the end. So, well, 5 seconds. It continues to get smaller. It continues to decrease. But I don't think Nuth is... I don't think Nuth's closing by enough, I wouldn't suggest, to win this Japanese Grand Prix. Just under 5 seconds now between those two. Right, Shea is making a fist of it here because he's still very, very close to the back of Vapor King. So he's not left this position alone just yet, and he's pushing him through turn 13. And on the exit they go, and immediately King goes to the inside, running up the hill towards 130R, and Shea goes to the inside anyway, and he's going to have the inside line, is he? No, because King just has a little bit more straight line speed, but once again, wheel to wheel on the exit. Can Shea get round the outside of the chicane? No, he can't, because he's not far enough alongside him. But as they exit turn 16, has he got the run through turn 17? Doesn't look like it. King's got a very good exit, hasn't he, out of turn 16? And that'll just allow him to keep ahead of the racing point for the time being. After Fuji held this race in 2008, F1 returned to Suzuka in 2009. Sebastian Vettel won 4 of the 5 races in that period between 2009 and 2013 for Red Bull. McLaren won 1 of those, and that was with Jenson Button in 2011. But even then, that was the race that Sebastian Vettel sealed his 2nd World Championship. Yeah, that was 9 years ago now. I'm getting older by the second. Reese into the pits for Williams. So I think he's just going to go for fastest lap here. Not for any points, of course, because he's outside the top 10, but purely just for satisfaction at this stage. I think just to say that he can get the fastest lap in the Williams. Once again, it's a race that's gone a bit awry for Reese. And there is Shea once again. Excuse me, Nuth once again, I should say. Less than 4 seconds now is the gap. But, yeah, really needed to be decreasing it more than what he is. But JT is doing a fabulous job out front of staying in front of the Ferrari and just maintaining that gap between himself and the current 2nd place driver. Desinio hasn't really left Jack Prentice alone, has he? He's still just under half a second behind him, and Bazooka Joe has just gotten ahead of Cobalt. Excuse me, he's just fallen behind TDB, I should say. TDB's just got ahead of the Alfa Romeo, so up into the points goes the Renault. So TDB's recovered brilliantly and is back up now into the points-paying positions in that Renault car. Although, here comes Bazooka Joe, back down the inside of TDB and gets the move done. So back out of the points goes TDB, and back into the points goes Bazooka Joe. Excellent battle this between those two, and it continues as well through the first sector as TDB looks to find a bit of a space to go into, but has to stand behind the Alfa Romeo for the time being. There is the gap between those two, just half a second. Desinio and Jack Prentice on the penultimate lap of running here in Suzuka. As Elian gets ahead of the ghost car of Cobalt, up to P12 for him. But sadly, this performance doesn't look as though it's going to be yielding any points in round number 4. There's Nuth again, 2.5 seconds separating himself and JT. And he can just see glimpses of the Mercedes in front. But for him, it's not going to be enough to win the Grand Prix. But it is going to be enough to take the lead of the World Championship. 14 points is... excuse me, no, it's not. It's not going to be enough because Trench is P3, isn't he? So yeah, Vapor Nuth P2. So the gap will close by 3 points today. And that'll be an 11-point lead, so it'll be enough to close in on the championship lead, but yeah, I was wrong. It won't be enough to take it, but he'll certainly keep himself well within that conversation with 6 rounds to go after today. Right, TDB's gotten himself back ahead of Bazooka Joe and managed to stay ahead going into turn 1 this time. So up into P10 he goes, up into the points as we rejoin Nuth. Look how close he is now. It's just under a second between him and JT, but it's not going to be enough because JT is going to come around the final corner now and brilliantly win the Japanese Grand Prix. Nuth finishes second. The reserve driver JT started on pole, got off to a horrid start, but it mattered little because the Mercedes driver, the reserve driver for round number 4, takes a superb victory in the Formula PlayStation League, and it's 4 different winners from the first 4 races of the season. 2 of those winners have been reserve drivers, as King finishes 4th, Vaporshea finishes in P5, Lorna Lamb will cross the line in the McLaren to take P6. It'll be 7th place for Jack Prentice, just in front of Desinio. Oh, but Desinio gets P7 because Lorna Lamb has penalties, which means Jack Prentice has P6 as well. There's Brown in P9. TDB takes 10th place. Bazooka Joe 11th. Did TDB have penalties? No, he didn't. So TDB manages to hold on to that final points position as we wait for Elian and Cobalt to come across the line to take P12 and P13 respectively. Cobalt, of course, is a ghost car because he disconnected for the session. He was on for a podium finish as well. Such a shame for him to lose out like that. And at the end of the running, here in round number 4, at the end of this Tuesday evening, it is a brilliant performance from JT that wins him the Japanese Grand Prix. Well, Mercedes have won every Japanese Grand Prix since 2014. Hamilton took 4 of those wins. Nico Rosberg and Valtteri Bottas have won each. And JT in the Mercedes has won here as well. There's your order then. JT takes the win for Mercedes in Japan. Nuth in 2nd place for Ferrari. Vapor Trench in P3 to take the final podium spot. The 2 championship leaders on the podium. Vapor King in P4 for Haas. A good result for him. Finally, he needed that. Vaporshea finishes in P5. 6th for Jack Prentice. 7th for Desinio. 8th with Lorna Lamb. 9th was Brown. P10 for TDB. Bazooka Joe just outside the points. Agonisingly for him. Elian, Cobalt, Reese, Sam, and then James, Fashion and Trixky all out of the Japanese Grand Prix. But here this evening, it is 4 winners from 4 races. Another reserve driver on the top step. It's JT winning in Japan. Good night.